we have been waiting with bated breath for Bari Weiss's project, the University of Austin, to reveal itself. And
excited.
I mean, come on. This is an alternative college experience. And by college experience, I mean that it's not a college. It's a 2-week course, summer program. Apparently, it's one course 1 week and then another course another week. And that makes it very different. Okay.
And there's a student, and I don't want to go super hard at the unnamed students in this clip here, but there's one student that said they learned more in those 2 weeks than they learned in their entire undergraduate experience. And I would just say, that's on you, chica. Like, that is a you problem, because even if you had bad class and stuff like that, the entire time in college, you weren't able to self-direct yourself to learn anything, like, in the context of those, that institution is wild. You have all the free time you need to learn something. But anyway.
Well, we have this fart sniffing video here where it's an explanation of how things went down. I've never seen people so self-important that it feels like that they're gonna overdose on their own bullshit any second. And I've also never seen such a low standard applied to intellectual diversity. At one point in this video, we'll get to it, but they say, and the professor says, we have someone who worked on the Trump campaign and another student who'd been in the Black Lives Matter protests. So your special college has someone who attended a Black Lives Matter protest and a Trump supporter. I guarantee you, say for like Liberty University, every college has that intellectual diversity. But here's why they're special.
Princeton, Harvard, University of Chicago, Brown, Claremont, McKenna. These schools are all represented here.
Pause.
UATX really.
Sorry, I don't quite understand that thing. No offense to Claremont McKenna, which is I looked it up. It's a private school. It's seems strange to put that in the context of the other ones. Maybe that's just me, but I've heard of those ones as Ivy League schools. But I thought the whole point was like
Claremont McKenna's a very good like smaller school.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
And it's not the Claremont Institute, which is what my initial suspicion was.
Yeah.
But also this seems a little bit elitist. Like, where are the kids from public schools, public universities? It's all these hoity-toity, intellectually diverse Ivy League kids. But anyway. Continue.
And my guess is that these schools have fans in their people in their administration who are fans of Bari Weiss, who put this out there and said, hey, you could attend this course and get some credits for us. This is my guess. And like, that's what is being represented here.
Yeah.
I wonder how much this cost. Not that it's probably not an issue to any of the people who attended, but I wonder how much it cost.
This is a missed opportunity. They should have name dropped Sarah Lawrence. That's what I would have done. I would have been like Sarah Lawrence College.
Maybe they don't have that diversity represented there, Brendan. Sarah Lawrence will sue them for even being associated.
Yeah, and I do want to say shout out to I do know there are Claremont students doing some good work there. This is from the Wikipedia. In 2015, the college dean of students resigned after students protested what they called the lack of institutional resources for marginalized students. The dean had implied in an email that minority students didn't fit the CMC mold, and her response to an incident of allegedly culturally appropriate Halloween costumes was seen as lacking. So we got some students from that school too, as well as Princeton. So I'm glad we got the whole
the whole gamut,
the whole private school gamut covered.
We have somebody who worked on the Trump campaign and someone who attended a Black Lives Matter protest as a counter protester with a gun. I'm just kidding, but I don't even know that. But continue.
They did a wonderful job of bringing all different types of people together, of different backgrounds, different viewpoints.
We had sitting around the table.
Pause.
One student.
That's Niall Ferguson. Niall Ferguson. I'm just going to pull out of the main shot here, but people might not know who Niall Ferguson is, but it's very rich for him to be presenting himself as some sort of steward of intellectual diversity, because he had to resign from Stanford University from the Cardinal Conversations intellectual wankery, where they invited Charles Murray to come talk about race and IQ and other freaks like that. This is from a Vox piece for Niall Ferguson, why he had to resign. Ferguson seemed to view Michael Ocon, a left-wing student activist slated to graduate in 2020, as a threat to the program. This Cardinal Conversations where they have Charles Murray on. In an email to 2 members of the Stanford Republicans, John Rice Cameron and Max Minchell, he wrote that, quote, some opposition research on Mr. O might also be worthwhile. Minchell, who works for Ferguson's research associate, said he'd get on the dirt digging. Some of the emails have an overtly sinister tone. Rice Cameron, who is oddly enough the son of Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice, wrote in one email that, quote, slowly we will continue to crush the left's will to resist, and they will crack under pressure. Ferguson wrote in another note, now we turn to more subtle... I mean, just listen to the way this guy talks. Ferguson wrote in another note, now we turn to the more subtle game of grinding them down on the committee, adding that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. The emails became public in a May 31 story in the Stanford Daily. The student newspaper. Yeah, no, the committee sucks. Seemingly as a result of someone accidentally forwarding them to the wrong person. I mean, I guess that's a theme. Given that it's wildly inappropriate for professors to be snooping on undergraduates in an attempt to intimidate them politically, Ferguson has been forced to resign from his post running the Cardinal Conversations Initiative. But of course, he remains a senior fellow at Hoover because Hoover Institute is basically a slush fund for those freaks. So that is the intellectual diversity guy now, Ferguson. A lot more you could say. His wife is the Anders Breivik, the Norway shooter's one of his favorite ex-Muslims, and she actually said that he ran out of options to do about all this multiculturalism. So
what's his wife's name?
I forget. Ayaan Hirsi Ali, that's what it is. So she's a big, ex-Muslim Islamophobe, frankly.
PragerU, I was going to say conspirator, but really it's a contributor.
Yeah. Ayaan, maybe Hitchens' worst intellectual legacy because he pumped her up, but she's just an absolute moron, frankly. And also married to Niall Ferguson and made Niall Ferguson leave his wife for her about a decade ago. So, sorry, I just need to do a little bit of side so we know who this Niall Ferguson asshole is. So if you could go back a little bit, Bradley.
Yeah, he's the one who says the quote that I keep citing. So
exactly.
Full circle.
Job of bringing all different types of people together, of different backgrounds, different viewpoints.
We had sitting around the table one student who had been on the Trump campaign and another student who'd been in the Black Lives Matter protests.
I'm sorry, Bradley.
It was a civil discussion.
Was it like a cop?
That's what I was going to say.
That's like the obvious.
I was going to say that student, Mitt Romney. He was the one who attended the Black Lives Matter.
No, it's Kyle Rittenhouse.
Like you first of all, you have a guy, and not just a Trump supporter, because again, these are all private school freaks. I went to private school. I raised my hand. I went to NYU, so I include myself among this. But this is an elite set of cohort we're talking about here. So he was on the Trump campaign. I mean, Jesus Christ, get some guy from like Arkansas State that was a Trump supporter and see how they do in there. But I also think, crap, what was the final thing I was going to say? That's it. Anyway, we can keep moving on.
No, I mean, it was someone who was on the Trump campaign. And
somebody who just went to a Black Lives, like a lot of people just went to those things.
I know people who I think have like conservative, largely views for the most part, like maybe just be like they're fiscal conservative Republicans here in New York, and they went to the Black Lives Matter protest.
You can end up at a Black Lives Matter protest or any protest accidentally if you don't know where they are and you stumble upon it.
It was literally like they said, we had someone who was integrally part of the Trump campaign debating with someone who voted in 2020.
Yeah, right.
I've been to an anti-vaxxer rally because one just like went marching by one day when I was out. So like technically, we have a lot of ideological diversity,
intellectual diversity on the Majority Report.
Yeah. Just one note before we get to Bari Weiss. The intellectual diversity from these folks always seems to omit anybody who is a pro-Palestinian and seems to think Israel is an apartheid state. Like that's the type of intellectual diversity that's not going to be at Austin, Texas. And I just want to also, we're about to get to the student testimonials here, and I honestly feel bad for any kid who's bought into this, because it is like, I understand in a vacuum where you don't know who these freaks are, like Niall Ferguson, why this might sound semi-appealing. But you have to know that these are absolute snakes that are crypto reactionaries, and they're trying to launder their views under this stuff. So that's, again, like the things you won't see is massive in favor of redistribution and challenge to capitalist power. And on the foreign policy end, you will not see anybody saying that Israel's an apartheid state, because Bari Weiss' entire career has been basically a pro-Zionist liar.
And a censorer of professors who have those views. So naturally, if she's in the professor/administrative role, she will be censoring any potential students coming to her university, all in quotes.
Incidentally, some of the most recent Glenn Greenwald work that I would still share with people is his 2018 articles on Bari Weiss, and why she still continues to not face up to her past as basically a censorious Israel apologist.
One student who had been on the Trump campaign and another student who'd been in the Black Lives Matter protests. Yes! It was a civil discussion in which we listened to the people on the other side of the table.
The environment that UATX has is so open and welcoming.
That liberal value is the core of our institution. You treat everyone with respect.
Even though we might have disagreeing viewpoints, our ultimate goal is always the North Star, which is free inquiry, success, and human flourishing.
An institution that's willing to take intellectual risk, you'll attract the intellectual risk takers. And those, of course, are the intellectual innovators.
Pause it.
The past week.
Learn another word. They've said intellectual like 6 times already.
Right. I noticed that too. Right. It's just nonstop. Intellectual, intellectually, intellectual.
And
it's
zero
obsession.
Not shocking because they're race scientists.
No idiots allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, let's get specific about what you're exposing these kids to, as opposed to it's just a life-changing experience where we're not going to get detailed about any of the subject matter or the syllabus. Like, there was only 2 effing weeks, so you could get a little bit detailed about what you covered. But no, we're just going to be very vague about it and be like, oh, actually, we were fearless in doing focusing on whatever we were focused on. It'd be a good question if Charles Murray came up or any other, like. Show the course materials. Be transparent so people know what they're going to sign up for here, and so people can audit it. That'd be interesting to me, but I don't think we'll see that.
Maybe they were just making noodle necklaces all summer. That's what my kid did. At
traditional camp activities, right? But they do the noodles. The noodles are red and blue, coming together.
There we go. Yeah.
With UATX in the Forbidden Courses program has been a really refreshing break from the normal atmosphere on a university campus.
It was even more engaging and interesting than I could have expected.
I don't think I've ever had an academic experience like this before. I truly feel like I've learned more here than I've learned in my undergraduate experience in college.
I really wanted to have my beliefs challenged.
Throughout the whole week, I had to really focus on being intellectually honest to myself.
There is an alternative path. There is a way that you can get to your goal without having to conform. Conformity is easy. Orthodoxy is easy. But nobody wants to actually live that boring, dull life.
So many people have expressed discontent with the way universities are now run, but not many people have come forward with a solution.
If there's genuine competition, guess what? You have to respond to that competition.
Very well.
There we go.
In a sense, a university is just a kind of pipe dream. The minute you're teaching, it's real.
Pause it. The minute you're fired from Stanford for trying to coordinate opposition research on a left-wing student, who, by the way, I looked up the guy. He seems like a very nice young man. He's currently, I think, an organizer with SEIU. But like at the time, he just, all was on his resume was like interning for Kamala Harris. So it's not like he's some sort of like bomb-throwing leftist. He was just a normal, like left of the center liberal. Yeah, and
I think Matt Leck discovered the guy who had the rigorous civil debate with the Trump campaign guy.
Yeah, and I
the
felt,
Black Lives Matter attender.
I felt bad making fun of that one kid that said, what did he say there? That, you know,
you could never have expected how great this was.
The environment, like that feels alienated by the environment on college campuses. I mean, I just feel like it's a bit of a red flag, but
well, you have to get specific. What's alienating you?
I gotta say, these kids keep talking about how great it was to, what a boring life it would be to live under the orthodoxy, and how great it is to be a contrarian. Yet not one of them sat there in this whole video and said, "This course sucked."
Yeah,
what's
exactly.
going on there?
You know what's funny? Just a short plug for some more news. They did a 3-hour video on Jordan Peterson that came out this week, and there's a very interesting bit where they go into Jordan Peterson's class, the reviews where you can review professors online, rate my professor sort of thing, before he was famous. And there's a very strict through line where even the people who are negative about Peterson admit he's a very good lecturer, but the negative reviews are all like, he said a lot of things that were not actually factually accurate, and it said a lot of like homespun wisdom about like lobsters and stuff like that is just sort of not really applicable widely. So like the actual content of the course was great, but he was a great presenter. And then the people who were very up on Peterson were like, he changed my life. And I'm sorry, that says more about you than it says about Jordan Peterson. And it says more about these students than it does say about UATX when they're saying like, this is the greatest experience of my life. Like, you got to get more experiences, pal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what struck me was just how vague everything was, that they just kept speaking very vaguely about like not being orthodox and like being transgressive in thoughts, but there were just no ideas shared that would make me think that that's what they're doing. It's more about a perception of oneself. There's just like a camp, like a summer camp that they're going to, which, God bless them. It's nice to hang out with people who have the same ideas as you, but that's not what they're presenting this as. They're presenting this as like, we're going to this place where we're all going to disagree, when it's clearly the opposite, because like what tends to be the thing that draws them all together, besides like their own like core of conservative viewpoints, it's their fetishization of themselves that's being heterodox thinkers. So they probably just get around in a group and start talking, like they start on one topic, whether it be Obama or like BLM or any of those things that are ruining America. And then it probably just evolves in them all congratulating themselves for like being willing to have contrarian thoughts. And it's just very quite obviously more about a perception of oneself than any particular ideas themselves. Right. Like, I'm contrarian, but not only am I just contrarian, which I think is what a lot of these kids, unfortunately, when you grow up under the Obama era, being like anti-establishment kind of just means you've become anti this right-wing picture of Obama. And, they just want to congratulate themselves for not going with the crowd like any other, group of kids. But there's no like, they're not learning math, like, like high level algebra or like, some sort of crazy science the way they're talking like it. They're just like, they're having debates with each other about things that they mostly disagree about.
Yeah, I have a family member who reads Bari Weiss, and we have had this debate many times where she says that I don't engage in ideas that are different from my own, and that it's incumbent upon me to be more interested in alternative thought, and that I'm kind of in the leftist bubble is the nature of the disagreement. Conditioned. And she goes, I don't agree with everything Bari Weiss says, but I subscribe to her Substack because I think it's interesting. It's good for me to entertain these ideas. And then I think about it and I'm like, actually, you kind of agree with everything she says. And for the most part, what your perception is it's really just a way to make yourself feel like you are not, like you are engaging in different ideas when it really is just validating your own perspective.
Yeah. I think. Oh, go ahead, Brandon. I was going to say, I think a lot of the idea that they agree with is the idea that people like Bari Weiss and these kids should be allowed to, quote unquote, discover the world through a type of lazy musing that is, flattering on oneself, that they should be allowed to write op-ed articles that are half about their own personal experiences and then extrapolate those things out to wide sweeping theories about the way the rest of the world does or should work. And that no one should be able to say, that's fucking stupid. Maybe you should read a book and learn something about like the world, because like ultimately what they pretend like they're doing is having like broad conversations about topics that are so confusing. But it's like a lot of stuff that these people talk about have answers. Like, we know whether or not the presence of police makes places safer. We know whether or not the presence of guns makes people safer. They're not like, they're not conversations that don't have answers, but these people want to keep the Charles Murray thing. They want to keep rehashing things that have been disproven because it makes them feel smart and that they don't have to learn anything new. And that's their main political opinion, is that they should be allowed to muse lazily about things that have answers. That's like the pundit thing, and New York Times writer thing. It's just, but it's not like
Brett Stevens. It's Brett Stevens. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's not like intellectual discipline or something you have to learn. Like, it's actually the opposite of that. It's just like, that you don't have to learn anything. Anything that you can't think about or discover through talking it out with yourself or someone who has the same views as you is just fine.
Let's finish it because I think we have like 20 seconds.
I just wanted to say, imagine living in the year 2022 and claiming you can't find someone to argue with about politics online or something like that. Like, these people, if they were really looking to debate and have actual like discussion, there's plenty of places to find that. You don't need to sign up for some pseudo fancy school that probably costs a bundle. You could just literally log on.
And it would be more intellectual on there than this.
In a sense, a university is just a kind of pipe dream. The minute you're teaching, it's real.
There is no God. Yeah, I mean, they really needed to include that, like, Braveheart final battle music for their 2-week
They're battling against ignorance with the power of rhetoric.
Did you guys ever watch Billy on the Street?
Yes.
You know the one where he goes, "Miss, for $1, name a woman." Yeah. I literally was thinking that with Bari Weiss. Like, Barry, like, for $1, name a single idea.
Name one.
Like, name a single thing you believe.
Yeah.
There's no substance to this. No. It is literally just them saying, we think so hard and so subversively, and we just can't stop thinking. And thinking and talking and discussing and debating and conversing.
Yeah.
The best thing about paying to go to this camp, though, is that you get to pretend like you can't do this anywhere else. Yeah. Like, that's what you're really paying for. You're paying for your own perception of your own like marginalization. That,
or
like,
you could just go to therapy. It'd probably be a little bit cheaper.
I was gonna say maybe a little cheap. This is Brandon. You're absolutely right. This is literally IDW summer camp.
Wait, was this the forbidden courses thing?
Yes.
Was this what it was called? Okay, yes. So from their website, let's hear.
Yeah,
what is the cost to attend? Due to the support of a generous grant from our donors, there is no cost to attend the program. Mm-hmm. Hotels, some meal activities are all covered by UATX. A $300 stipend will be given to participants to defray costs from travel, some meals, and other incidental expenses. I see why everyone loved this program so much.
I think that this would probably be an all right networking event for people who, like, young Republicans, if it were a higher profile and better put together. Like, if this was the kind of thing where, like, you'd like one of the Bush's grandkids were going to be there, you would want to be there too. But this seems like more like an event for people who want to be like right-wing pundits to kind of like meet their heroes.
This is the professors from These are the professors from week one. Niall Ferguson, who I mentioned doing Oppo research. Ayan Hirsi Ali on free speech, religion, and why Anders Breivik had no other choice. Dorian Abbott on approaches to climate change. You look up Dorian Abbott, and the thing he's notable for is having problems with diversity, equity, inclusion. So nice to hear that from the climate change guy. Rob Henderson on the psychology of status. I don't know who Rob Henderson is. I assume he's a schmuck. Week 2, Kathleen Stock on varieties of feminism. I'm sure that's great. And I'd be interested to see what they say about trans people. Jacob Holland on ideology. Again, I don't know who this Jacob Holland guy is. Deirdre McCloskey on capitalism, catastrophe, or triumph. She's the woman who was talking about like liberal values, who I thought was one of the McCloskeys from the Black Lives Matter protest, but it's a different one. And then Thomas Chatterton Williams on blackmail writing from Richard Wright to Ta-Nehisi Coates. It's interesting. It's interesting. Chatterton Williams. I mean, Chatterton Williams is a guy who falsely claimed that trying to defend Bari Weiss, saying, well, why does Bari Weiss get dragged for what she did in college, while Ibram Kendi, he mentions, says that he was racist in his book, but he doesn't get dragged for it. And the difference, Thomas Chatterton, is that Ibram Kendi put his apology in the front of his book, and Bari Weiss denies that she did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But those are the idiots you can learn from in 2 weeks.
And flattening power in that degree.
Yeah. It'd be really sad if you signed up for like forbidden courses or forbidden knowledge, and it's not like teaching you how to like remove people's souls from their body. It's just like Bari Weiss talking to you about how you can't put your phrenology in the New York Times anymore. Like, that's just like the biggest bait and switch I've ever heard.
I know. I thought I was learning spells.
Yeah, the forbidden knowledge.
It's even the site is so vague about what the hell it's even about. The Forbidden Courses summer program brings together undergraduates to cultivate the habits of civil discourse. In discussion-based seminars and practical workshops, students will discuss and debate the most vexing questions of our time.
What?
What?
It just sounds like in television shows, and this is gonna make Emma mad, but specifically shows like Gilmore Girls, when like they just like flash to someone having a college class at the last few minutes of class, and they're just like clearly not discussing anything.
Yes,
because like they're just like
make me mad.
The stuff that's going on in Burma is just like crazy, and then it's just like that's it for today. That's what everything in that commercial was like.
Right.
It's like the illusion that there's going to having like a healthy, like vigorous discourse about actual like topics, as opposed to like it's all performative in the sense that we get together and we pretend like we talk about things.